Today's lesson is protests, paintings, and climate change. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we're talking about protests, and we're talking about paintings, and we're also talking about climate change, sometimes referred to as global warming. And you may have heard this in the news a little while back. There were some people in Europe trying to damage paintings at museums as a way to bring attention to their causes, and that's a way of protesting. It's kind of extreme, but as our article says, that's what they think is a way to get more attention because people have been ignoring them for a long time.
Right, and when you're a protester, what you want to do is get the public's attention to the cause that you are trying to forward or to defend. And as a protester, one trick is to think about how you can get people's attention. So evidently, these protesters decided that it would be a good idea to get people's attention by throwing food or doing certain things that could potentially damage very important and expensive works of art.
That does seem kind of extreme to me. We'll talk about our opinions on this as our lesson continues. But again, protesters do want to get attention, and they may be sincere. They really want to bring about change with something. They're not just doing it for attention to get onto YouTube or something like that. But there are various ways to get people to pay attention to you. This seems to be an extreme way, so we'll talk about it today. Let's listen to the first part of our lesson, and then we'll be right back.
Protests, paintings, and climate change. Throwing soup at a Van Gogh painting might sound like a bizarre way to protest climate change, but it may soon seem unremarkable. That's because climate change activists have increasingly been engaging in such disruptive actions in hopes of drawing attention to the problem of global warming.
大家好，第一部分我们可以看到形容词 bizarre， 指的是奇异的或是古怪的。例如 Brenda read a bizarre story about a woman that lived with hundreds of cats. Brenda 读了一则关于一名妇人与数百只猫同住的奇异故事。或者 Jeff's bizarre behavior led some to speculate that he had been drinking. Jeff 的怪异举动让人怀疑他喝了酒。
Now, throwing soup at a Van Gogh painting might sound like a bizarre way to protest climate change, but it may soon seem unremarkable. That's true. Initially, when these people were protesting climate change or the damage that is being done to the environment due to increasing temperatures, what they did was they decided to draw attention by going to museums and trying to damage some famous paintings. And in one case, the protesters threw soup at a Van Gogh painting. And initially, that seemed really bizarre. So bizarre means strange or something that's really difficult to explain can be bizarre. You can talk about somebody's bizarre behavior. If they suddenly start screaming in a library or in a movie theater, then that would be bizarre behavior. So it's bizarre to throw soup at a famous painting as a way to protest climate change. However, if you see these events enough times being reported in the newspapers and on TV, then these events will soon seem unremarkable.
Right. Unremarkable just means kind of ordinary, nothing unusual. Of course, they're special, I guess. They're noticeable at the beginning, but once you see it many, many times, it becomes kind of boring and unremarkable, kind of old hat, as we say, and people may not pay attention to it anymore. And why is that? Well, that's because climate change activists have increasingly been engaging in such disruptive actions in hopes of drawing attention to the problem of global warming. So it hasn't happened just once or twice. Lots of activists are doing this all over the place, and therefore it may soon become unremarkable. They'll have to think of another way to get attention for their cause. We're talking about these climate change activists, and these are people who are active in trying to make some changes with society. So we have all sorts of activists who promote various political causes or social causes or whatever. We might have activists who try to promote better education for people or taking care of poor people and stuff like that. And in this particular case, they want governments to do something about climate change, to stop us from sending chemicals into the air so that the temperature will stop going up and we won't have such terrible weather and the world won't end in 20 years or something like that. So they've been engaging in disruptive actions in hopes of drawing attention to their cause. And the cause, of course, is the problem of global warming. So again, these are activists, and they've been active or they've been engaging in these disruptive actions. If you engage in something, that means you become involved in that thing. You are part of it. And so they are doing these acts, they're committing these acts of protesting. And these are disruptive. If something's disruptive, it kind of causes a break in the smooth operation of things. So we've got people going to museums and they want to look at the artwork, but we've got these protesters sitting in front of a painting. They're chained there or something like that. So they're disrupting things. They're bothering us. They're not letting us do what we want to do.
Yes, and another use of the word disruptive could be to describe a student. Sometimes teachers have to send disruptive students out of the classroom and into the principal's office if they are disrupting the class, disrupting the lesson. In other words, causing problems and not allowing the teaching to continue.
Exactly. So they are doing this. They're committing these acts. They're engaging in this disruptive actions in hopes of, or with the hope of drawing attention to the problem of global warming. So in hopes of means that's their hope. That's what they want to do. They want people to pay attention to this problem and start taking it seriously. Okay, that brings us to the end of our introductory paragraph. Let's take a look more at the body of the article for today. Let's listen now to the second part.
Other recent stunts include activists gluing their hands to famous paintings and pouring milk out in grocery stores. The activists believe that since less shocking protests have failed to achieve their aims, they have no choice but to try more aggressive tactics. Their hope is that when videos of these stunts go viral, more people will finally realize how important stopping climate change is. But not everyone thinks their approach is acceptable. While many critics of the activists agree that climate change is an urgent priority, they also argue that such protests are too extreme to be taken seriously. They say that if you want to start a green energy revolution, you must work within the system to produce systemic change.
第二部分我们看到片语 have no choice but to 加动词，意思是别无选择，只能点点点，或是不得不点点点。举例来说 The weather is terrible today, so we have no choice but to cancel the baseball game. 今天天气非常糟糕，所以我们不得不取消棒球赛。又或者是 Since you are not doing your work properly, I have no choice but to fire you. 既然你没把工作做好，我别无选择，只好开除你。另外补充它的同义片语 have little choice but to 加动词 little, L-I-T-T-L-E, have little choice but to 加动词。例如 Ian had little choice but to skip breakfast as he was running late for school. Ian 上学快迟到了，所以不得不略过早餐。再举一个例子 When it started raining, we had little choice but to pack up and go home. 开始下雨时，我们除了打包回家外，别无选择。接着我们看到形容词 aggressive， 指的是富有攻击性的、好斗的、挑衅的或是侵略的。例如 It was dangerous to walk around the park because there were some aggressive dogs. 在这座公园附近散步很危险，因为有一些具有攻击性的狗。又或者是 James won the fight because he was more aggressive than the other boxer. James 赢了比赛，是因为他比另一名拳击手更具攻击性。再来，我们看到单字 tactic， 它是名词，意思是战术、招数、策略或是手法。举例来说 The coach had to change his tactics after finding his team down by 21 points at halftime. 那位教练发现他的球队中场就落后21分，所以必须改变战术。再举一个例子 The government is looking for tactics to slow the rising price of healthcare. 该政府正在寻找减缓医疗保健价格上涨的策略。最后我们看到名词 critic， 它是名词，意思是评论家、批评者或是反对者。我们可以说 TV critics hated the first season of the show, but they loved the second. 电视评论家不喜欢这个节目的第一季，但他们喜欢第二季。
We looked at the first part that some of these climate change activists have thrown soup at a famous painting. Now, they have also done other things. Other recent stunts include activists gluing their hands to famous paintings and pouring milk out in grocery stores. So here we refer to the actions of the activists as stunts. A stunt is something that is unusual, or it can even be considered silly, that is done to get public attention. So we can also talk about a publicity stunt. If somebody or a company does something to get the public's attention to their product, to buy their product, that would be considered a publicity stunt. A stunt can also be used to refer to a dangerous action that a person does to impress other people. So there are people whose jobs are to do stunts. They might jump off a building or walk on a rope across between two towers, and these would be stunts people.
Okay, or if you're making movies, of course, and you don't want the actor to get hurt in a particular action sequence, they might hire a stuntman to perform stunts. I could say, for example, that Tom Cruise and Jackie Chan did their own stunts. They did not rely on stunt people or a stunt man. But these are stunts that these activists are engaging in, these acts in public that are kind of extreme in order to get attention. Of course, some of those include gluing their hands to famous paintings. That seems kind of extreme. And also pouring milk out in grocery stores. That's, of course, a very obnoxious behavior. That's perfectly good milk, but they're pouring it out in grocery stores in order to get attention for their cause. And the activists believe that since less shocking protests have failed to achieve their aims, they have no choice but to try more aggressive tactics. So they're saying here that their protests have failed to achieve their aims. Okay, so if something fails, of course, it is not successful. So traditional modes of protest, shouting in front of government buildings or writing letters to the editors of newspapers or whatever, those are just not having their desired effect. So they have no choice. They have to do this. They have to try more aggressive tactics. And if you're aggressive, that means you're almost violent. You're very assertive, and you're almost trying to destroy or hurt people who get in your way. Of course, sometimes if you want to get through traffic during rush hour, you need to be a little aggressive. You need to move forward. You need to honk your horn more, and you need to make people scared of you more often.
That's right. So I could say, for instance, that I have no choice but to take the bus to work because the subway isn't working today. So I am forced to do this. I'm forced to make this choice. And tactic, of course, refers to a particular method of doing something or a particular plan for achieving something. Sometimes you need tactics to get what you want in life. You can't just say, this is what I want to do. You have to figure out how you're going to get there. And in certain cases, you have to use aggressive tactics. So you can't be too nice. You can't be too accommodating. You have to be more direct to get what you want.
Right. Special techniques or special skills, they have to rely on these aggressive tactics or ways to get more attention. And their hope is that when videos of these stunts go viral, more people will finally realize how important stopping climate change is. So that's their hope. They're hoping that the videos will be widespread and they'll be on the internet in various forms of social media and YouTube or whatever. And that, of course, means their protests are going viral. So if something goes viral, it becomes very popular, especially on the internet. It gets passed around and people forward these links all the time. And they're hoping that if it does go viral, more people will see this stuff. They'll see their protests and they'll realize, climate change is very important. Otherwise, these people wouldn't be gluing their hands to paintings. I guess I'm going to start walking to work instead of driving a car.
Yes, but not everyone thinks their approach is acceptable. While many critics of the activists agree that climate change is an urgent priority, they also argue that such protests are too extreme to be taken seriously. So not everybody agrees with their method of trying to get attention because there are critics. So a critic is somebody who doesn't like something, doesn't like a particular product or the way somebody is acting, and they make it public. They state their opinions about it. I could say as an example that a particular politician, has a lot of critics, meaning that politician has many people who are against his particular point of view or the way he is conducting his affairs.
Right. So yes, we've got critics, people who offer opinions on other aspects of society. So they'll be taking a look at these protesters and think, that's kind of extreme there. Maybe we can't take them seriously. It looks like they're just doing this for attention, that they really don't care about climate change. Maybe they have too much time on their hands. Their parents have sent them off to college and they don't have to pay their own way. So they're just doing this as a college prank or a college stunt or something. So again, people will not take them seriously. They'll think they're just doing this for attention. They're being obnoxious and they don't really care about climate change. And they say that if you want to start a green energy revolution, you must work within the system to produce systemic change. So that's what the critics are saying. Yeah, if you really want to start a green energy revolution, you've got to work from the inside. A revolution, of course, is a big change, and we're talking about green energy or renewable energy, types of energy besides fossil fuels and things like that, using solar power and things like that. And in order to bring about this revolution, you've got to work within the system. And you do that to produce systemic change. Systemic has to do with the system itself, how everything works together in the world and in a society. So yeah, you want to work from within to change the system. And it's a slow process, but we need more and more people to become involved in order to make that change. And that's what the critics are saying. You shouldn't have to rely on these extreme tactics.
Right. So systemic refers to the whole of something, not just a part of something. You can also say something has experienced systemic failure, which means that the failure has affected the entire body of that thing and not just one part of it.
Indeed. Okay, so that's what the critics say. I wonder what all of you think about this particular topic. Let's move on now to the third and final part of our lesson for today. We will listen to it first.
In any case, such protests may quickly lose their impact, as what was once shocking can quickly become mundane. As such, the jury is still out on whether they'll have a lasting effect on public perceptions of climate change.
So wrapping up today's lesson on protests, paintings, and climate change, our conclusion is this. In any case, such protests may quickly lose their impact as what was once shocking can quickly become mundane. Now, first of all, when we say in any case, it's a way to sum up a lot of things that have already been said. So regardless of everything that has been said, these protests may not be as shocking as they first seem to be because what is shocking in the beginning can become mundane. So mundane just means ordinary or not interesting at all. It can also be another way to say unremarkable, which is a word that we saw before.
Yep, indeed. And mundane, of course, means kind of boring, uninteresting, lacking interest. Your job might become mundane if you do the same things over and over every day, and you might decide to quit and get a new job. But yes, indeed, this kind of protest, or these kinds of protests, can become mundane. They can become ordinary, and eventually people will not pay attention to them. In fact, it may actually hurt their cause. As such, or therefore, the jury is still out on whether they'll have a lasting effect on public perceptions of climate change. Now, in American justice, in a trial, we have the jury, and after a trial is conducted, the jury is out. They go into a back room and they discuss the case and decide whether the accused is guilty or innocent. So if the jury is out, they haven't made their decision yet. So the jury is still out means we don't really know whether these protests will actually be effective on public perceptions or if they'll be negative. We just don't know because they just started recently. Perception is just how you look at something. It's your point of view.
Right, so the jury is still out, or we still don't know whether these types of protests will have any lasting effect on public perceptions. So perception here is a particular way of looking at or understanding something. You can say, as an example, what is your perception on marriage? In other words, what is your thought on marriage? How do you think of marriage as an institution? Do you agree with it, disagree with it? Those are your perceptions.
Indeed. So, yeah, people might have some positive perceptions about these people, or they may have negative perceptions about them. Only time will tell. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Let's hear from Hanny now.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny， 今天要练习克漏字题型。那我们来看文章的5个题目。第一题是 That's because climate change activists have increasingly been 空格 such disruptive actions。 那这边考我们片语动词，先来看选项 A bearing out， 我们用 bear somebody out 或是 bear something out 是指证实证明或是为什么来作证。那么 B departing from， depart from 表示偏离脱离或者是从什么什么出发。那么 C drawing up，我们用 draw up 可以表达制定啊、起草、草拟的意思。好，那么 D engaging in， 那么 engage in 就有从事、参与的意思。课文前面提到说，像梵谷的画作泼汤这种抗议气候变迁的方式，可能很快就显得稀松平常。也就是说啊，会有越来越多这类抗议行为。从语义上来看，我们可以推测是要表达气候变迁的环保行动分子越来越多地参与、从事这一类引起混乱的行为。最适合答案就选 D engaging in， 其他选项都跟语义不符合。好，第二题是 The activists believe that since less shocking protests 空格 they have no choice but to try more aggressive tactics。 这些环保行动分子认为，由于不那么令人震惊的抗议活动空格，他们别无选择，只能尝试更激烈的招数。这题是在考我们语义。先来看选项 A have struck a balance between art and the environment， 在艺术和环境之间取得平衡。 B are the key to saving the earth， 是拯救地球的关键。 C have failed to achieve their aims， 无法达到目的。 D are praised by the mainstream media， 受到主流媒体赞扬。好，那么空格后方句子提到他们别无选择，只能尝试更激烈的招数。我们可以推测空格里面是要填入让他们不得不采取激烈手段的原因。那最适合答案就是 C have failed to achieve their aims。 好，那么第三题是 While many critics of the activists agree that climate change is an urgent priority, they also argue that such protests are too extreme to 空格 seriously。 尽管许多批评这些环保行动分子的人同意气候变迁是当务之急，他们也认为这样的抗议活动过于极端，以至于不会被认真空格。好，这边看我们时态，选项 A taking， B be taken， C be taking， D have taken。 以上4个选项都是 take 的动词变化形式。那我们先看到空格前方，他说 too extreme to， 我们这边可以推测他是要用 to 形容词 to 加原形动词的句型去表达太怎么样以至于不会怎么样，所以空格里面应该要填入原形动词。那选项 A taking 就可以先排除咯。再来 take something or somebody seriously， 这是指认真考虑或是对待什么什么，把什么当一回事。那根据题目意思，它是要表达这样的抗议活动过于极端以至于不会被认真看待。那被认真看待应该用被动语态，所以最适合答案选 B be taken。 好，第4题 They say that if you want to start a green energy 空格 you must work within the system to produce systemic change。 他们说如果你想要掀起一场绿色能源空格，你必须在体制内运作以产生根本性的改变。这边靠我们自会，选项 A discrimination 就有歧视、区别对待或者是区别辨别的意思。 B concentration 是专注力、专心。C interpretation 表示诠释、解释或是阐明。 D revolution 表示重大变革或是革命。从语义上来看，应该就是说要掀起一场绿色能源革命。那最适合答案就是 D revolution。 其他3个选项我们说歧视啊、专心或是诠释这种语义都不符合。再看到第5题，它先一个空格逗号 Such protests may quickly lose their impact as what was once shocking can quickly become mundane。 这边他说空格逗号，这样的抗议活动可能很快就会失去影响力，因为曾令人震惊的事可能很快就变得平淡无奇。这边是考我们副词片语，选项 A in any case 是无论如何不管怎么样。 B on the contrary 表示相反地。 C as a result因此。 D for instance 举例来说。好，那我们看到题目空格是位于最后一段的开头，那前一段是谈到批评者认为这样抗议活动过于极端，不会被认真看待，那么环保行动分子应该在体制内运作来产生根本性改变。接着我们跟最后一段的观点相比，就发现前后内容并不是相反论点，那他们之间也没有因果关系，更没有举例来佐证，所以 B、C、D 这3个选项都不符合。那最适合答案就是 A in any case， 用来表达无论如何这样的抗议活动可能很快就会失去影响力了。好，那以上就是今天的讲解，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Bizarre. Albert's bizarre behavior made his friends concerned about his mental health. Unremarkable. Though it looked unremarkable at first glance, the small hill contained a buried treasure. Activist. The political activists made countless phone calls aimed at preventing the bill from becoming law. Aggressive. Cora's aggressive approach to sales made some of the store's customers uncomfortable. Tactic. The soccer team's tactics proved ineffective as the other team quickly scored 3 goals. Critic. Although he had many critics, the mayor was successful in his effort to balance the city's budget. Perception. Aaron's perceptions of Japan changed a lot when he visited Osaka.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.